Hello, you beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of I Am the Hammer, the show in which I talk about all things Grey Knights. Obviously, recently when it dropped, I did a quickfire review or read through of the Warpbane Task Force. But now I've managed to get a few games in. I know some other people have got some games in. We're starting to collect some data. And in this episode, I am going to be discussing everything you need to know in order to be successful with Warpbane. Let's dive in. Okay, so I'm going to start off by just touching on Teleport Strike Force and where I think that's at the moment. And then I'm going to dive into the Warpbane Task Force. So I'm just going to talk about the winners and losers and sort of how it's shaping up. Having had a few games now, I'd like to think I've picked up a bit. So I've just got some ideas for advice for players who are trying to get the most out of the detachment. Then I'm going to dive into list building. So I'm just going to talk about sort of things to think about, and then I'm going to give you some example lists. And spoiler alert, I think these are all very good lists. Okay, so I've got one for everyone. I've got like a 6 dreadnought, a 5 dreadnought, a 4 dreadnought, and a 0 dreadnought list. Sorry, and I think they're all good. I think you could all take any of these lists to any GT, and if you play it well, I think you've got a good chance of doing well. So stick around for that. But of course, if you are going to enjoy this video, which you are, why not give us a like, give us a subscribe, leave a comment, all the good stuff. So, is Teleport Strike Force dead? Now, obviously, there's going to be a lot of comparisons. So, if we look at just the detachment rule, it's no contest, is it really? We get auto 6 advance and fly, or reroll ones to hit / quite often reroll all hits. There is no argument there. Warpbane is clearly better. So then we have to compare the enhancements and the stratagems. Now, what you have to bear in mind now with Teleport Strike Force is that Armor of Contempt has been nerfed. That was a big thing for Grey Knights. Got 2 up save, I'm in cover, I'm going to hammer Armor of Contempt. This unit is now, for the whole shooting phase, going to have +2 to their save. That's now gone. It's only for like that unit that's the firing. Okay, so then someone else shoots and AOC's gone. That's a big nerf. And then you to the durability, and then you add on to that the 3-inch deep strike is now only 6-inch. So 2 of the 3 most important stratagems for this index are now gone. Or this index detachment are now gone. So what it comes down to is what's better, Mists of Deimos and Sigil, or much more output. And I think a lot of Grey Knight players at the moment are quite enjoying killing things. And I must admit, it has been quite fun to get to kill things. You still have to play your keep away, and you can do that in your list building. I think you don't need Sigil if you get around it with how you build your lists. As I'll discuss, I think it's probably had a death toll for a certain build in Warpbane. But other than that, it's Mist and Sigil versus more output. And I think you can do without Sigil. You just build your list accordingly to not ever have needed Sigil in the first place. And then Mist of Deimos is, you're just playing a different style now. You're going more aggressive, more for the throat. And if you're taking, especially if you're taking like no Dreadnought lists, you've just got a lot more stuff to deal with. So is this detachment dead? No. If you want to play 30 Terminators, you absolutely still can. But it's not as powerful because you can't Armor of Contempt the whole time. You can't now 3-inch deep strike and weave your units, spread them out, and be a nuisance to trigger mists. So I think realistically, Warpbane is probably now the way forward. Those are my 2 cents. Because having played a lot of games now, like Grey Knights just were always in a slight uphill struggle across the meta. And now they've got some new tools. I think they're actually in a decent place. So if we're going to analyse the Warpbane Task Force, the detachment rule is obviously great. You know, out of all these Grotmus detachments, I think most armies out there would like reroll ones to hit or reroll all hits reasonably sufficiently, especially in shooting. You can trigger that. So yeah, I think like when Grey Knights first dropped, it was like you've got this amazing rule. This is why they haven't got great shooting options, because it should be obscenely powerful. If I can just pick my stuff up, go somewhere, and shoot really well. Well, now I can do that. Grey Knight shooting's options are incredible. They haven't got mega buffs of epic sustained or lethal or sheer like great firepower, and it's still on expensive bodies. It's still an elite force, but now you have got that output. So the rule is great, and then we've got the fact that because of the style of the rule, it's just opening up more list building options, and that's exciting for a book which doesn't have that many legitimate choices. I think the fact that we can now take so many different things is really nice. The enhancements are pretty average, to be fair. There's no real enhancement that is an auto take. Radiant Champion is really nice, and there are a couple of clear winners for places that they can go on. Other than that, if you've got spare 10 points, then just auto picking a unit to be in Hallowed can be nice. Other than that, enhancements are a bit average. Stratagems, again, obviously we've got the 6-inch Deep Strike and Charge. That's really nice. The Mortal Wound ones are kind of okay. They are quite niche and situational. Obviously, Purifiers get a nice glow up with the reroll wounds strat, and it's reroll ones for everything else. So, that's pretty good. But yeah, mine's just got blank. Let me just double check the others. Mortal Wound. 4-pin one. Again, that's pretty much pointless. And then you've got the subtract charge one, which can potentially, if you've still got Hallowed Ground -2, is really good. That and the rerolls. What I found in my games is I've had a lot of CP spare. So actually, you can probably be hammering those a bit more than I have been. So what are the winners? Well, obviously, it's basically a purified detachment, right? It's telling you take purifiers. They give you Hallowed Ground. Purifiers are really nice. What I'm seeing is there's just a really big discussion, I'll talk about this later, on how many purifiers you take. Crow's Brick with 10 is nice, but expensive. 5-man's reasonable, especially if you're able to hammer that reroll button. It's kind of like, it comes down to the list building process, I think, how many you want to take. But obviously, purifiers, nearly all Warpbane lists are going to take them. For me, I've been loving Purgation Marines, and I'll wax lyrical about them later. I'm not going to spoil it just now. I'm going to make you carry on watching the video about why you should be taking Purgation Marines later. But suffice to say, they're really good. Dread Knights, at the end of the day, 6 Dread Knights, 5 Dread Knights was a list that was doing really well. The issue was that Dread Knights are incredibly inconsistent. Now you've got rid of that inconsistency. It's not a list style I like to play, but taking 5 or 6 Dread Knights and just re-rolling all your hits is a hell of a drug, and it's pretty brutal. So Dread Knight's a big winner. What I love is that MSU is a big winner. I've played most games of this detachment have been with no Dread Knights, MSU style, and it's been really. You feel like, I've got so many units. So I think there's lots of really interesting builds. In the England Discord, Grey Knight section, we were talking about how it's really nice to have the option of trying to build like this MSU style, and I think that's in a really interesting place. The Brother Captain, if you've watched many of my other videos, you'll know earlier on in the year I was all about the Brother Captain. He's now got a bit of a glow up because you stick him with 5 Terminators, you reroll your 1 to wound, you're rerolling all your hits. Give him Radiant Champion, the upgrade for mortal wounds if you cause a wound while you're doing your. Obviously, it's pretty much a very consistent 3 to 4 mortal wounds on top of the whole unit having sustained in combat. And a couple of side cannons as well that Brother Captain really like. Tet Marine, he's your best Radiant Champion choice in terms of he has 8 attacks. So if you can get full hit rerolls, then hopefully that's 8 hits. And then in theory, it could be 8 mortal wounds on top of his any other damage. That's really good. And along with that, Brotherhood Champion, because he gets rerolls against character units. And you're seeing some people build Brotherhood Champion with like 10 strikes now for that fight first brick. So that's quite an interesting choice. Losers, unfortunately, big bricks. The reason for this is with rerolls, 5 Terminators do a great job now. You don't need 10 bricks for the output anymore, realistically. So then it's, are you taking big bricks? It's durable enough. Now, 10 Terminators maybe, 10 Paladins, you don't have Sigil, you don't have whole phase Arm of Contempt. It's tough. Unfortunately, I've played a minimum of 1 big brick for the entire year, basically, 2024. I love my Paladin brick with Sigil. I've not used it, unfortunately. I think probably not the direction I would go down, but also a coaching client of mine, Jim, hello if you're watching, he's been using one and been enjoying it. So definitely go down that route and give it a go. I'm just not sure whether it is the most efficient way now of playing it. So, what tips and tricks can I offer you? Well, interceptors. One of the things with Grey Knights is sometimes they can struggle a bit on locking down lots of objectives. And so obviously you need to be holding half to trigger Hallowed in the middle. Well, why not just stick 5 interceptors in the middle of the board, trigger your Hallowed. So let's say it's 3 across the middle, right? You're holding your natural expansion objective. You've stuck your interceptors on the middle where no one wants to go because it's a killing field. You now hold 2 out of the 3 objectives. Great. You've now got full rerolls across the middle of the board. And then all they need to do is shoot and then hop back behind the middle ruin. Job done. On top of that, if you're leaning into Purgation Marines, they obviously can shoot out of line of sight if you can see the target. So interceptors, again, you move the interceptors out, they've triggered Hallowed Ground. Your Purgation Marines are just sat in your deployment zone, which is always Hallowed Ground, and you're just re-rolling all those 4s to hit. Silencers, sustained, basically 24 shots, 24 hits, 16 wounds on a lot of general infantry. Take that many saves. Oh, double that if you're taking 2 squads, triple that if you're taking 3. Or if you go down the side cannon route, that's 12 shots, 8 hits, wounding on 2s or 3s because it's strength 8. You can even hurt cannons, tanks with your cannons. And the interceptors, obviously they can't always see everything, but you can move them out and then move them somewhere safe afterwards to trigger your Purgation Marines. It's quite hard to play around, and if you keep your Purgation safe, that's probably somewhere between 3 and 5 turns of just good shooting, or decent shooting. Just we know how broken indirect can be when it's finely tuned, and it's going to be really annoying for a lot of matchups. Another thing I think is really important is when you're at the start of your turn, or even for me, I'm planning my turn in my pick up units phase. But specifically when it comes to your turn and you're thinking, right, well, how am I going to lock down my primary? How am I scoring my cards? Can I deny their primary? You also want to be thinking, how am I activating Hallowed Ground for this turn? Don't just let it be a coincidence that, it happened or it didn't. That should be part of when you're moving your pieces. Am I also maintaining this for your shooting phase? It's just another thing you need to be thinking about. Make it a conscious effort for now, and hopefully it'll become more ingrained in time. And just don't be lax with your positioning. If it's not looking like you can trigger No Man's Land Hallowed Ground, are you able to shoot from wherever you were whilst in your deployment zone? Because then you just get your free rerolls. Are you able to bring them onto you so you can get full rerolls in combat as well without any issue? Because you would imagine a lot of the time when they charge you, in No Man's Land, you probably won't have hallowed ground. So if you do survive, you're only getting reroll once to hit. So yeah, if you can get them, fighting you in the in your deployment zone. Played against Blood Angels recently. I was able to do that, so it's quite nice. The general Grey Knight process still is the same. You still need to focus down a bit of the board and then teleport and focus on another bit of the board, etc. It's just now you get to do it with rerolls, and so you're far more likely to be successful with it. You are still pretty durable. It's 2-up saves are 2-up saves. Shooting in cover, that's -1. So that's good. But what I found is AP1 just hurts because you're obviously those 3-up saves just can go wrong. So yeah, you just have to be wary of that. But don't be surprised if your units do still survive. Some of the strats are situational. So much so that I don't really ever think of most of them. So I end up with a lot of CP. That's why you need to get lots of reps in. So I'm trying to just have it open, and each opportunity be like, wait a minute, do I want to do the come near me and just take mortals strat? Or do I want to do this strat for extra mortals at the 5 heads? Oh, is this a 5-6 inch charge? Let's make it a 6-7 inch charge. Have I got CP to do that? Just get them in front of you. Just try when you're practicing early on. Just keep going through those thought processes of, do I want to use these strats now? And you'll become more powerful. Have a rapid ingress plan. Obviously, with mists and picking stuff up, it wasn't such a vibe for the Grey Knights. Now, I really like Brother Captain, 5 Terminators for rapid ingress. I think that's really nice. And then you've got that, plus Drago's Brick, plus potentially Purifiers coming down. There is a discussion going on at the moment. Leave me your thoughts in the comments on whether Purifiers, when they drop down, do they have their own aura and can they do the 6-inch charge, or do they need to feed off another Purifier unit to get the 6-inch charge for hallowed ground? I suspect you don't have your own aura in this case, but I think probably going to need a ruling on that. And finally, Psy Cannons love plunging fire. As I said, I've been leaning into Purgation Marines. Depends on what boards you're playing on, but like UKTC, you have that big L in your home field. Stick them on the second row, put the 4 on the second row, and then your other guy, your leader, just below them on the lower row, so that you're holding the objective still. Does reduce the necessity for strikes, some people are arguing. But hey, -2 side cannons, give them cover. Probably not armor contempting these days. -1 side cannons. Cool. Marines are on 4s. That's some dead Marines with 12 shots, 8 hits, 6-7 wounds. You're killing 3-4 Marines with that. So yeah, get those side cannons. Obviously, silencers, getting plunging fire is pointless because they're getting cover anyway. But yeah, see if you can get some plunging fire. 24-inch threat range hits the natural expansion, or hits the No Man's Land objectives quite often as well, depending on the map. So yeah, you can cover a lot of ground. So yeah, those are just some things that I've picked up. Again, if you've got any other thoughts, whack them in the comments. Let us know what's working for you. So you're going to build a list in Warpbane. What do you think about? For me, the starting point when I'm building a list is how many Dread Knights do I want in this list? Am I going to go 0, or am I going to go mixed, which is 3 or 4, or am I going to go for the 5-6? So that's your start point for your list, and then you're going to build from there. There's a lot of discussion at the moment about how many Purifiers you would need in the list. Obviously, we want Purifiers to trigger the hallowed ground as and when. Just bear in mind, please, I've seen some stream games where people aren't playing it like this. It's models wholly within the hallowed ground, so don't toe in the 6 inches with your Dread Knight. If you could do that, it would be obscenely broken. You've got to, your model has to be wholly within the aura to get the rerolls. Okay, but yeah, a lot of people are on 10 Purifiers with Crow and then 5 Purifiers. Some people have gone for 2 5s, 3 5s. Some people have gone for the full 30. Then there's also a discussion on what weapons to take with them, and I think that's an interesting one. I've just been going full combat. I've not taken any flamers or side cannons. I think there's a real argument to take 4 side cannons with them, because you've got the rerolls there. So yeah, I think. But then obviously you've only got 6 guys plus Crow who are punching. So it's a tough one, isn't it? I'm sure we'll eventually. Well, actually, to be fair, I was going to say we'll probably eventually settle on one, but I don't think we will. I think that's really interesting. I think you can just flavour it to taste. There's no right or wrong answer there. It just slightly alters the role of the unit. Finally, as I mentioned earlier, 5 Terminators with full rerolls. They don't need to be a 10-man for output anymore. They are brutal, especially if it's with a brother captain, with the sustained on the combat weapons. So just bear that in mind. Can you take 5 rather than 10? Do the maths. Just whatever unit you're thinking of taking 10 rather than 5. Just work out how many Terminators they kill, how many troops they kill, whatever. Okay. So what I've got for you now is I've got some lists, and as I said at the beginning, I think these are good lists. So just pick one. If you're struggling for a list, just pick one depending on how many Dread Knights you want, basically. So all of the Dread Knights. So I've got a 5 and a 6 list here for you. So first of all, this is 5. So I've got a Tech Marine Radiant champion. So that's extra mortal wounds in combat. He's got lots of attacks. That's a bit of a nasty piece. 2 Grandmaster Dread Knights. You have 10 points left over in this list, so you can just give it one of them Paragon, which is the picky unit, and they become hallowed ground. Aura. 1 unit strikes, 1 unit of interceptors, 3 units of purgation. Now, what should your purgation marines be armed with? Most people are saying side cannons. I do like silencers, guys. I do like silencers. What I have played the last few games is 1 unit of side cannons, and that sits, as I said, up top on UKTC, or the one just below the top, for plunging fire, and then 2 units of silencers. That's what I've been going for, and I really like it. I think you could probably go all 3 side cannons, go 2 side cannons, 1 silencers. It's a bit of a meta shout, really. I mean, lots of people are saying we're going to be heading towards vehicles and stuff in the meta, so in which case you probably would want to go side cannons. It's up to you, really, but yeah, 3 purgation squads, just you sit them in your home field and they just re-roll. 4's re-rolling. That's 75% hit rate. Silencers get sustained 1, that's 100% hit rate. So yeah, I think 3 purgation squads are really good, and people are slowly starting to cotton onto it. In this list, there's 2 purifiers of 5 man, so we haven't got the big brick, but they're just there to help out the Dread Knights basically with their rerolls, and then 3 Nemesis Dread Knights. If you want the full 6 because you're a mad lad, then what are we going to lose? Well, we're going to lose 1 of our purgation squads, and we are also going to lose the Tech Marine. And if you do that, then you've got 6 Dread Knights, 1 strike squad, 1 interceptor squad, 2 purgation squads, and 2 purifier squads. I think that's 2k on the nose. I think these are all genuinely good lists. Like 6 Dread Knights just re-rolling is just so much firepower, and like if you are able to dump 4 or 5 of them into a corner of the board and just clear out a certain area and play the angles so that you can't get hit hard. Let's say you lose 1 Dread Knight, then you pick them up and then you go somewhere else and you hammer that area. If played well, like with the consistency, 6-5 Dread Knights is just brutal, I think. If I was to go to a GT and I like this style list, I'd probably go for the 5 Dread Knight one. But I could see arguments for the 6. It's not my style, so I don't know whether I'll lean into it. I don't really like it. I prefer having more stuff. But yeah, I think these are really good lists. So if you want some Dread Knights, here's 4. So I've got a Tech Marine with Radiant Champion, a Grandmaster Dread Knight, and 3 normals. So that's your 4. Then you've got Crow with 10 Purifiers, 1 unit of Interceptors, 1 unit of Strikes, 3 Purgation Squads. And it's just 1 unit of 5 purifiers, so that is something. It's got a 10 and a 5 of purifiers. So So yeah, again, I'll be honest, I just think it's a good list. It does a bit of everything well. You've got the combat punch of the 10 purifiers and their shooting, and the 4 dread knights. You've got the shooting of the 4 dread knights and 4 of the 3 purgation squads. Just a good list, guys. Now, obviously, there's probably one thing you will notice I haven't included so far, and that is Terminators or Drago of Terminators. They are quite expensive, but the math says that 5 Terminators with full hit rolls are probably one of our most, or if not the most efficient unit we have for damage dealing in the whole book now. So if you want to try and get those in, obviously that's a really great shout. I suspect you end up losing the Purgation squads for 5 Terminators and Drago. That's pretty much the same points cost, isn't it? 3 Purgations is 360, Drago, and 5 Terminators is 325. So pretty similar. What you can get more value out of, I guess, is the question. But yeah, lots of chances to experiment, I think. And finally, none of the Dread Knights. Now, this is the list. Let me stop sharing. Sorry. Oh, it's all gone on. No, go away. Now, this is the list that I'm currently on, and it came from somewhere else, which I'll address. So, 2 Librarians on their own. Zap, Mortal Wounds. Brother Captain with Radiant Champion with 5 Terminators, rapid ingressing in. Drago with 5 Terminators, doing Drago things, failing the charge. You know the drill. Crow with 10 Purifiers, and then another 5-man of Purifiers. 1 unit strikes, 1 unit of interceptors, 3 purgation squads, and then servitors. So servitors, if you haven't come across them, they're only 50 points, guys. And for that, you get 4 melter shots. Cool. Strat reserve, come in from a flank, boom. 4 melter shots. Hallowed ground, cool, great. I'm going to re-roll those, hitting on 4s. Initially, I built lists with these plus a tech because he makes them hit on 3s, I think. And yeah, I know our very own Ed Watts played a few games with 3 librarians, like 1 or 2 units of servitors. So servitors really good for their points. Now this list came from a previous iteration where I didn't have the librarians, and instead I didn't have the servitors. Instead, I had a rhino and Dragos with 10 Terminators instead. So that, instead of 2 Librarians, it was like the Drago bomb to really be getting stuck in. And in Interceptors, just sit in the Rhino in the middle and can go really far, or can just keep dropping in and out of the Rhino. So they kind of get out, they see everything, trigger Hallowed Ground, they do a bit of shooting at the end, and then they fire and fade back into the Rhino. So that was another iteration of this list. I've won all my games with this list so far. It's 3 or 4 matches I've played. Beat Custody Dreadnought spam with it. And we know Custody Dreadnought spam is... Although I beat that with the Rhino and 10 Terminator Brick. Beat Blood Angels the other day with this build. So yeah, it's a good list, guys. Genuinely is a good list. So hopefully those have given you some ideas if you have been struggling. But as I said, Grey Knights are in a really, really interesting spot at the moment with list building, and there's no right or wrong answers. It's just what suits your play style, I think, personally. I've had this chat with Ed from my team so many times, and there is no ultimate list in Grey Knights. It's what fits you and how you want to move the pieces around. I like having stuff. I like to do fancy things with lots of stuff. And that I've enjoyed playing this list. Like when I played the Custody Dreadnoughts, and just everything just filled the board, and you're like, how on earth? Like, this is impossible. And then you manage to just get the flanks and start to clean up certain areas and play the angles, and it's really satisfying. If you're new to Grey Knights, I would recommend going for probably 3 or 4 Dread Knights. I think I'm not saying that I think this no Dread Knight list is better than lots of Dread Knights. I think potentially the best list is 6 Dreadknights, just for pure firepower. But you have to play it in a certain way, which isn't necessarily how I like to play 40k, or I am good at. I should also add that when I've played 5 Dreadknights before, I've not been good with the list. So I know my strengths and weaknesses as a player. So it's just something to bear in mind. So what's next for me personally? Well, I've got a tournament in January. What tournament is it? I don't know. As you would know if you've watched previous videos, I've just had a baby. So my playing time is somewhat diminished in terms of events and that sort of thing. So when I finally got the green light to go and play at Nottingham Super Major, tickets were all sold out. So I've got a choice to make. Basically, the weekend before Nottingham is Saffron Slam, one of my teammates. Always a great event, lots of fun. The only issue is it's only a couple of the boards are UKTC. The rest are just a narrative style thing, which look cool and a bit open to shooting sometimes. And this, I have to make a decision. Do I just go to Saffron Slam, or do I risk Nottingham and just turn up and hope some people have dropped? There are big drop rates for UKTC events. I feel like maybe not so much this time. I'm going to keep looking for a ticket. What would you guys do? Let me know. We've got the International Team Tournament in February. We've been doing really well in those. We came fourth the last couple of times. 60 team events, we came fourth. We were like just a couple of points away from the final, and the last one was just got a winning draw into Vanguard Tactics, but they had a slightly higher battle score than us. So they got to play in the final. I didn't actually ever do a report on how the ITT went. Basically, I built a list to keep all the games close and play into whatever my teammates didn't want to play into. So I 18-2'd Necron Hypercrypt, which was great. And then I lost to Warhorde 9-11, lost to Admech 9-11, which came down to the final cards. Lost to Tau 9-11, which was a game of two halves. I basically played appallingly for the first half of the game. And the second half of the game, played out of my skin with like 3 units and managed to scrape a 9-11. The final game into Vanguard Tactics, played Mike Costello with the old guard, played out my skin again, and that was another 9-11. Although actually it should have been a 10-10, I should say. We just got a rule about when you can score primary and secret missions and burning objectives. We got something a bit wrong there. So it should have been 10-10, which I was happy with. But yeah, an 18-2 and 4 9-11 is basically how I designed the list. But yeah, we came fourth at that. So really excited about this upcoming one. Am I going to take Grey Knights? There's a good chance I will be, just because it's what I'm most comfortable with. I don't get a huge amount of time to play. I've just been trying to sneak in TTS games when I can. If not, it'll probably be Custody Dreadnoughts, because that's also very strong at the moment. And also I want to do a battle report, whether it's a TTS battle report against a teammate, whether it's a TTS battle report against myself, or whether it's an in-person battle report. I'd like to get the Grey Knights on the table for you guys and just show you how I play them. That might be helpful. So yeah, that's all for now. Thank you very much. It's been such a great year. I've played Grey Knights in like 70 matches this year. I was looking at my stats earlier. It's been a complete learning experience. You guys have joined me for this journey, so thank you so much. I was getting a bit bored, to be honest with you. I was definitely considering my options for next year as and when I can play, but Warpbane has kind of reinvigorated me. So hopefully we can do some stuff. I can go to some tournaments, and the next video I'll do will be after I've been to either Saffron or Nottingham, and I'll do a tournament report and fill you in even more on my learnings. But yeah, please do give the video a like and a comment. That helps the algorithm. If you haven't subscribed, then why not subscribe? It helps us. About half our viewers, half are subscribed, half are not. So that'd be great. We do have membership options. We have coaching options. We've got a website on the way, merchandise. We've got an event coming in March, a big 60-person event we're running up in Barnsley. You can find loads of information about us on our Facebook page. We've got an Instagram page. We've got a really active Discord, nearly 600 people in there, lots of Grey Knight chat, as well as all the other armies, various other game systems. So yeah, please do come and join us and say hello. And yeah, see you next time. Bye bye.